Welcome to Hidden Conversations. Hidden Conversations is coordinated by WVIK and hosted by Dr. LaDrina Wilson, a leadership and diversity expert and founder of IMAN Consulting. These conversations are designed to delve into many of the most difficult issues of race and equity facing the Quad Cities today. Many of these issues we hear about every day on the national news, but then are left unaware when they occur to our own friends and neighbors. We hope that by hearing firsthand stories and statistics from experts based right here in the Quad Cities, we can break down the myth that these things only happen somewhere else, and in so doing, increase our empathy for those who literally live right next door. Thank you for joining us this evening. Here's Dr. LaDrina Wilson.
Good evening, everyone. So happy to have another opportunity to be here with you all. I'm excited for today's conversation because we got some really dynamic guests who are going to be joining us for this dialogue. And hopefully for those people who are out there who are music enthusiasts or just curious about kind of our angle on this conversation, hopefully this will be a good opportunity for you to learn a little bit about history, a little bit about what's happening currently and how Black music culture influences these individuals, but also the music industry in general. Before we welcome our guests, I wanted to shed a little light on why this conversation was important to me. As we contemplated, what are important issues to talk about? You don't think of, especially when we're talking about the Black experience or equity, you don't necessarily think, oh, music is this topic where maybe there would be, some things to uncover, right? Like it's not as messy as like some of the other conversations that we've had around, profiling, police violence, criminal justice reform, right? It's not messy like that or complicated. But the one thing that makes music really unique is that it really transcends all cultures, right? It's like it's got this universal language about it. You can listen to music in a completely different language and not know the words and still be touched. Music is a form of sharing narratives, and in some cultures, sharing narratives carries a lot more weight than even like textbooks or data would, right? And so in that way, music is a way for us to connect and communicate. I worked with an arts organization around some of their diversity and inclusion efforts. And one of the stories that I shared with them and one that I'll share with you is my husband produced music for years. And he would, of course, if you live with a musician, creative, you get to hear the same song over and over and over again when it's in production. And he would always have her in the room with him. And I could remember she was about, I don't know, maybe 8 months old. And she might even been a little bit younger than that, maybe 7 months old. And at that age, they don't have babies don't have full control over their bodies. They don't, they have a little bit more dexterity than they did when they were much younger, but they still don't really have control and function of her body. She couldn't walk, she could crawl, she couldn't really move around, in the way that she does now at 16. But I do remember as he was producing a beat, her body started moving. And I looked at him and he looked at me and I said, is she dancing? Because it looked like she was trying to groove a little bit. And when I reflect on that story and also think about how eventually she did become quite the dancer and did competitive dance, I realized that music it creates a space to move people. It can move you on an emotional level. It can move you on a physical level, right? And in that way, it's really, really powerful. And so today, I just want to have some people with us today to share their connection to music, their experience and their expertise, but also to talk a little bit about some of the history in this community and more broadly in the music industry, because we do know that despite the fact that music is this kind of equalizer or this convener of people, right? There's still underrepresentation of certain cultures in this community as it relates to who has access to what stages. And there's also stigma related to certain genres that are often associated with Black culture or Black community. So with that, I want to bring my guests in. We're going to start our conversation yet again and learn from some of the best to ever do it, right? Some of my folks. So today we have Ashley Dean with us. We got TC Boyd and Nate Lawrence. I'm going to allow them each to do kind of their own introductions, but I do want to share like part of why we brought this group together was because they have very different approaches, different backgrounds, and like a flavor that I think will add a lot of layers to this conversation. So I'm so happy to have each one of you here with us today to impart upon us some of your knowledge. Okay. So I'm going to start with you, Ashley, just because you're at the top of my screen there. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience with music broadly, as well as your experience with music culture here in the Quad Cities?
Well, hello, everyone. My name has already been given, but I'm Ashley Dean, a Rock Island native. And let's see, I have locally experienced from church to singing in school to singing for various things in the community, and recently had the opportunity to sing across the world in music. I've had early exposure to music because my family is a musical family. But I remember as a young girl going to stage plays at the Adler Theater, musicals at the Adler, which was really fun. My grandparents were pulling me to quartet concerts here in the area, and I loved it. And my first concert at the Mark was 98 Degrees. Moving on to NSYNC, whom I loved more than 98 Degrees.
You're aging yourself just so you're dating yourself because you're a baby.
It's okay. It's all right.
Mine was Boys to Men.
Go ahead. Who was yours?
Boys to Men.
Oh, yes. I'm here for that. I will say I got to see Anita live, and that Anita Baker, and I'm good. You know what I'm saying? I'm good. So, yeah, that's me.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing. So, TC, you're next up. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And I mean, now at this point, you have to share what your first concert was because Ashley.
Yeah. So TC Boyd, of course, as she said, from the South Side of Chicago. I've been in the Quad Cities for probably about 5 years or so, 5.5-ish. And I've done music, my entire life as far as just for fun, more professionally, probably for about the last maybe like 3 or 4 years. And you said first concert, man, I don't even remember, man, honestly. I don't know. It was probably some like small. I can't remember, man. I wish I had an answer for that, but it was something. I'll probably say it later if I can remember about it.
Yeah, it'll be like 4 o'clock in the morning when nobody's
right
on the internet worried about it. You'll be up thinking about it.
Right.
Well, so if you don't know your first concert, what are some of your musical influences?
I would say Twista, Kanye, Jay-Z, probably some of my biggest, and then James Brown. I love James Brown and Michael Jackson too. So it's a lot.
All across the board, but
yeah,
it's machine. So my question is, when you said Kanye, are you talking about old Ye or like new Kanye?
Probably a mixture. Like right before he started, like I like the when he got like super like gritty with his beats, like not like when he did like all the samples. I'm a producer too, so like not the like sampling Kanye, that was cool too, but more like when he started switching his beats up where it was like more aggressive and kind of like real like in your face. So that Kanye more. So like more of the, I guess, slightly newer,
It's like right when he met Kim. It was like anyway, that's a whole nother story. Okay, we got Mr. Lawrence, Nate Lawrence. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your influences, and maybe your first concert if you remember it.
Well, I remember that after a bunch of us kind of got out out of school at the same time, and we were doing some community organizing with friends, and we started and published a newspaper called the Common Bond. No, first of all, I'm from East Moline, Watertown, and so we were just kind of hanging out, doing some community organizing, and we started this newspaper called the Common Bond, and it circulated in the Black community. And then one time, my cousin, a pianist from Gary, came to visit, and he and I were talking about the activist art climate in Minneapolis. So fast forward, he moved his wife and his kids to Minneapolis, and we set up shop on the South Side and began holding street concerts and attracting other musicians and kids. The name of our band was the Enterprise Band of Pleasure, and we were going where no man had ever gone before. But we couldn't make any money as a jazz band, so we switched over to a funk band, and so we kind of got on with that, and there were other people that were in our band. Morris Day was our drummer.
Wow.
Alexander O'Neill was our singer. Was our lead singer. Him and Ernie Peniston from Muscatine. He was. We bounced back and forth between the two of them. At any rate, fast forward again. For the past several years, I've been a director with Polyrhythms, a grassroots nonprofit group of community and cultural arts advocates. And we host a third Sunday jazz series at the Redstone Room in Davenport, which we consider our local effort. And we have a Bill Bell Jazz and Heritage Festival, and ordinarily we have it at Martin Luther King Park on Friday and Saturday, and then we have it at the Redstone Room on Sunday. And we consider that our regional effort. And we also have we're also a key part of the Meade Legacy Jazz Griot Award, and we present that at the GEN conference, the Jazz Education Network conference, and we consider that our national and international footprint. So that's me.
So you've been doing this. You've been doing this for a little bit.
Well, yes, for a while, about 15. We've been 15 years. We've been doing a third Sunday jazz series.
Oh wow,
you know, that's pretty serious. You know, that's that shows we're not running.
mm-hmm.
We're not running away from our obligation to service our community.
Yeah. So you said a couple of things that kind of resonated with me, and so I have a couple like follow-up questions. One was you said you couldn't make any money as a jazz band, so you switched to funk. And so I have two questions for you, and you answer them in whichever order makes sense for you. One, how did you transition back to jazz? And two, have you heard of mandrill before?
I'll say yes to mandrill. The transitioning back, you know, listen, we started, we were of the mindset, you know, my piano player was from Gary. You know, I used to hang out in Chicago a lot at the Modern Jazz Showcase and those places, you know, so that's what we were into. You know, but at some point or other, you make a practical decision that either you can make it with this or you can't, you know, and so we moved over. We were in Minneapolis, and you know, there were several things going on. Jesse Johnson, you know, he first came to Minneapolis. He came to play in our band. Prince used to play with our band when he was arguing with his recording company. You know, so you know that they wasn't into jazz. You know, because everyone makes the mistake of thinking that you got to work at it. You know, it's just a different way of looking at things. So we were very anxious to get back to to jazz because there are two kinds of music that you have to know the fundamentals in order to be able to play it well in jazz and classical music. So if we want to teach kids, you know, then what we thought was we didn't we didn't want to teach shortcuts. We wanted them to learn the fundamentals. So that's why we knew we were going to get back to jazz. And
Okay.
it was just a matter of when. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do want to let you know, you made a comment about the Midwest, so I'm going to circle back to the other panelists on this, but Mandrill, Carlos Wilson is my father-in-law. So the brothers are my uncles, I guess, in-laws.
Okay.
So that's why I asked you about that. And it's really something to go to some of these jazz concerts. We had the opportunity to go to a jazz concert, and you know, they're of that same era, you know, that you're in, and to watch some of these older women that are like, you can see that they go back to a time and space. I mean, like literally like senior citizen groupies. I don't mean to sound crass or anything like that, but to see, it's really something to see. And then of course there's the more serious side of the people who just genuinely love good music. You know what I mean? So you made reference to some of the people being in, you know, Indianapolis, Minneapolis, spending a lot of time in Chicago and that type of thing. It can be really hard to be a musician in the Midwest, particularly if you aren't like in a major metropolitan area. So it sounds like you spent part of your career kind of, you know, in various areas. To TC, I'll start with you. I know you said you came to us by way of Chicago, but tell me a little bit about what's been your experience with trying to establish yourself here in the Quad Cities, and what do you wish that, you know, maybe was different about that process?
Yeah, well, actually, the Quad Cities has been kind of a cool community musically, because it has a lot of these smaller, like kind of do-it-yourself type of establishments and everything. So, you know, you got a lot of like people, you know, putting their own little shows together. So I think when I first got out here, that was kind of like what I did. So I would do all the coffee shops like Ross Talks, or, you know, some of the other places that just had like those, like whether it was open mics or whether it was like, you know, a full on show that people were putting on. So it's a lot of different like types of music out here, which you know, for a smaller community than Chicago which was kind of cool. And then you have these like I say, small hubs of places where people are putting shows on. So for me, it wasn't really that hard of a, I guess I'd say, you know, because there was just so many different opportunities for such a small area. I personally think it's been cool. You know, you can build a good base, you know, build a good little fan base, people that support you, and then, you know, just kind of, you know, branch out to other areas. That's at least what I've been doing, or I've done, I mean. And what was your other question? I can't remember. What was the second thing you said?
What do you wish that it would have been different about the process? It sounds like you've had a very like smooth transition into the community, which I'm glad to hear, because I think the Quad Cities, we do a really good job of like welcoming people, but not always including people. And it sounds like your experience maybe has been a little bit different. So is there anything that you would change either in your approach or how you were received? Or is there more that we could be doing as a community to welcome artists?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, I guess I have noticed, like, you know, I think you hit on this a little bit earlier on your intro with, like, you know, there's certain venues that might not want certain genres of music, you know. So I mean, that's the thing that I've experienced, you know, especially doing like, you know, rap music, pop rap, urban music and stuff. So I feel like, you know, it comes with a certain stigma, you know, that a lot of people sometimes don't want to attach themselves to. So I think what happens is when people hear, just for me, when people hear my content, it kind of changes some of the narrative. I do a lot of stuff I kind of consider myself like a conscious, type of rapper as far as my music goes. So it's stuff that, you wouldn't think is like super crazy if you listen to it and but still has a certain stigma to it, obviously, because I'm doing rap. So I feel like having to navigate that, I've noticed that in the Quad Cities, but I feel like I've noticed that everywhere, the Quad Cities, I noticed that, everywhere, but that is a thing that definitely exists, just kind of that negative stigma to the type of music I do. But then at the same time, there has been like QC Beats did, they did I was part of their launch they did. It was a couple years ago, maybe, where they had like an eclectic group of like different like genres of music come in the same venue, on the same day, and it was like super cool, from all kind of things you wouldn't normally see together. So that was cool, to see that happen. So I feel like there's efforts to kind of bridge that gap, but of course, work still needs to be done, of course, but there's definitely some efforts I feel like that I've seen at least.
Can I say something?
Yep, go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, one of the things we designed our Jazz and Heritage Festival, because we wanted a place where we could do all genres. We actually copied the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival's way of doing things, and because we can have gospel, we can have we can have R&B, we can have rap, we can have whatever, we can have country, we can have whatever genre is going on in our area. Let me say something real quick about the history of this place, of the Quad Cities. This is this place is kind of, it was the farm implement capital of the world. So in the Great Migrations, a lot of people came here from a lot of places, and so everybody worked hard. It was, I grew up in a community where music was valued and church was mandatory and music was all around us. And there was and on Fridays and Saturdays there was a lot of singing and dancing and joy, and so you could, we were always surprised at how much our elders knew about music and our parents and whatnot, because we always saw them, going and coming and going from work. But the place was really kind of rife with musical tradition. I mentioned two events. The Bill Bell Jazz and Heritage Festival, and the Donald Meade Legacy Jazz Wheel Award. These guys are guys from my community. Bill Bell is he played the piano at Mount Zion Baptist Church, and he graduated from Augustana, and he went to University of Iowa, taught at Trail Iowa for a while, moved out west to and where he, when I would visit him, he was head of the Alameda State Music Department, Jazz Department, and the people, the people that would be in his band would be William Kennedy from the Yellow Jackets and Sheila E. We go in the back door of Sheila E's daddy's place, and there's a guy named Pat Patrick who played in Sun Ra, and Sun Ra was really the precursors to Star Trek. I mean, because they were just kind of out there with some free kind of offerings. Pat Patrick's son is Deval Patrick, and he was the governor of Massachusetts. These people were in Watertown, and they grew up. They grew up. So what they grew up. We grew up in that area. Mally Mally Williams was the head of UT's band, eventually, but everybody did music, and you did all kinds of music because at the time there was only one radio station that everybody listened to, and that was KSTT, and it had you could any kind of music that you wanted to listen to was all on that one station. You didn't have to go to specialized stations like WLLR was country and all these other things. But it was so we had that little well-roundedness about our understanding about what music was and who liked what.
Right, right. And so for those of you that don't know, Nate is a historian, archivist in his work that he does. And so, it's always really important to understand or be connected to the roots, right? And
Right.
when I hear you talking about, this was all in Watertown, right? And so for those folks who don't know about Watertown or know where Watertown is, this is down in East Moline, below the hill. Some might say the hood, right? But there's so much rich contributions that come from some of these neighborhoods. And when we don't tell our stories, whether it's through narrative or through music, we lose that, right? And so then other people tell our stories. Other people create the persona of whatever our genre is. No one genre belongs to a certain group of people, right? But you know what I mean, right? And so I think it's really important to have your perspective represented so that people know, like, the talent does not discriminate on generations or on racial or ethnic groups, right? There's still that kind of talent here. It's just a matter of, do we have the resources to help people unlock that talent and that potential, right? And it's unfortunate that sometimes resources are not just financial, it's time, right? It's a lot of different things, access. And so it's important work that you do in terms, and there are a number of other organizations, and hopefully we talk about some of them today, that help youth and aspiring artists get access to some of these tools to help them break out. I want to circle back and bring Ashley in, because Ashley, like you said, you've had an opportunity to play all over the world, and you dropped in our little inside comments. We have a little private chat that we use too about what your most memorable concert was, asking the question. And mine was actually, I got to see Stevie Wonder and Prince at the same time, and I literally thought, if I die today, I'm gonna be all right.
Stop.
Prince did a cameo at the Stevie Wonder concert I was at, and I was just like literally like shaking. So anyway, but you've had an opportunity to play all over the world. And I recently saw that you just, in the last month or maybe 6 weeks, sang at the Adler.
Yeah.
And so it's they're your story. So you tell what you feel comfortable with. But I think the original question was about, like, what is it like being an artist in the Midwest, specifically here in the Quad Cities, and what are the challenges or what's unique about it?
So what's probably strange about me is that I don't really want to be an artist or never have tried to pursue that per se. I mean, I've recorded covers and recorded covers and done different things like that. But the platform, I'll back up. I just know that every platform is not for me. And I lead with a different thought process when I go out to do different things. I'm not going as an artist. I'm going, okay, is this the assignment for me? Is what I carry, is the gift that I carry, beneficial for where they're asking me to go? So yeah, I love to sing. I absolutely love the result of what happens when people hear my voice or hear my gift. I live for that. But as far as the platform and that, it's different. But I will say, things that I have done, it feels like it's not a lot, but things that I have done in order to get opportunities like that is literally like blooming where I've been planted. I've had the opportunity to sing background for Stevie Wonder, and at that time I was enrolled at St. Ambrose University. I was a part of their music program, and I was just in a season where I was like, okay, Ashley, you know, you here, you're going to go ahead and give this all that you got. And it just so happened that I was performing at the school, recorded those performances. They were posted on Facebook, and the right person saw my videos and, hey, I'm working with Stevie's management team. He's looking for background singers for a summer tour. I think you'd be great. And the rest is history. The Adler Theater, participating in different things in the community with Miss Karen Roebuck. She was the right person who had the right ear at the right time and saying, I know exactly who you need to be a part of this show. And boom. So really doing, for me as an artist or just as an individual in the arts, it's seeing the opportunity to learn, seeing the opportunity to be a part of something, seeing the opportunity to just be in the moment, and the right person seeing what it is that I'm doing and pulling me up from there. I'll also say that I love to learn. And one thing that I always said when I was younger was that I would get my start in the industry as a background singer for famous people, which is crazy. But in knowing that and in feeling that pull to background vocals, I also love to harmonize. I'll be in the car, just, pulling out parts. Anyway.
I do that too, but I can't sing like you, so it's different. But
I bet you do better. I bet you be in the car.
The acoustics are great in the shower.
The shower will get you right. Okay, better than the Adler. But I go out of town to workshops. I see something and I do my best to participate in things like that, because while we do have gold here in this area, somebody else is striking gold there, and that's a networking opportunity. And if you just show up and you just show what it is that you have, and you have the character, you have the integrity, you have other things in line, they'll remember you and call for you on certain things. So hopefully y'all got an answer in all that I said, but it's a marriage of different things for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Ashley, obviously I've known you for a number of years, and I hold you in high regard. And literally almost every time I hear your voice, even just listening to like the resonance in your voice when you talk, you can know she can sing. You know what I mean? Like when I hear you sing, it literally gives me chill bumps, right? But I guess I never realized in all this time and knowing you that you don't really consider yourself an artist, right? And so that was something that I maybe put on you, although I find it hard to believe that you don't see yourself in that way. I'm not saying you're not telling the truth. I'm just
It's more so not having the desire for what comes along with that.
Okay.
But I also know that when you're on stages and you're on platforms, that having that attached and associated with you is a part of the territory. But I myself would not say, oh yes, I'm an artist. I'm doing this. I'm Ashley and I'm here to sing. What y'all want to do? That's just me personally. So.
But so the flip side of that though too is, though, I hear you saying you're seeking out opportunities to learn, and in a way you're perfecting your craft, right? So you have your natural gifts, you're investing the time to grow in that space. So I just think, this is just an interesting way to like hear you process through that. So thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think I've told Ashley this like a bunch of times, but like she's literally like one of the dopest singers I've like ever heard in my entire life, and I've told her this. And so I think I don't know if you mentioned that to me as far as what you think about like the artist thing, but I just think that, man, you just got it, and I'm just glad that you're doing it, like to whatever degree, man, because you got something special. So anyway, that was it. I'm done.
This is not about to be an artist Ashley intervention. Can we go?
I
To the
mean,
next question.
I thought we were fangirling.
Right?
Jump in.
I
And
love
it's
y'all.
we just
Thank
all,
you.
if you need a self-esteem boost, you just come on the Hidden Conversation. We got you.
Just
So,
let me in the dough.
but you did make mention to, when you're on the stage and when you have a platform, there are certain things that come with that, right? So, TC, maybe I'll start off with you. As you think about the experiences that you've had, are there any places, stages, or venues that you feel are unique or special to Black artists?
In the Quad Cities or just in general?
Here or more broadly? I mean, I'd love to hear about the Quad Cities if you have something to share, but whatever
Yeah.
your experience has been.
Yeah, I would say maybe, or for me personally, like anytime I do an event that has a lot of, I can't say specific stage, but maybe like specific audience type of, stage. Anytime where it's like young, impressionable people, I feel like for me, that's something special, mainly because of my genre that I'm in. They have a lot of content that's coming at them that is a little more, I guess can be destructive, depending on who they're listening to. And so I kind of come from an angle where I share my life story and, growing up in the streets and, all this other stuff and people dying and all that stuff. So I kind of try to share from that different perspective, man, that kind of gives them kind of like, give them some hope, give them some, something to look forward to in their future and look, kind of encourage them in life and stuff, man. So I think for me, those stages, I guess I'd say, are the most impactful for me because I know when I was a shorty, the type of people I looked up to, you know what I mean? And the type of things that I liked to listen to or do and all that. I was impressionable, you know what I mean? So that's how I got involved with streets and stuff like that. So I know like to hear somebody else that grew up from that like me, if I'm pouring that out into, these shorties, man, I feel like for me, whatever stage, whether it's like a school, whether it's a college, whether it's a church, whether it's a, coffee shop, wherever it is, concert venue outside somewhere throughout the Quad Cities, like, cause I've done a mixture of all that. Wherever it is, I feel like I guess that's just the most impactful for me personally.
So for you connect to the audience, maybe more so than the venue or the atmosphere, right? It's like that connection with the people. I mean, I think Ashley even kind of alluded to that too. Like, I absolutely love the way that reaction or that response that you get from people when they hear your voice. So TC, I do have to back up for a second because you really did say like, in the streets and people dying and stuff like yada, 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 like very like that's not, that's not how normal people would like describe that type of life. So I know that maybe what we should do, like when all this is done, is like, obviously we're on Facebook. If you can like drop a link to one of your performances or something like that, because I have heard your content, and I know and I admire your content, but I think the way that if somebody doesn't know anything about it, the way you just described it doesn't give it full.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you.
So like, we'll just have to drop that link at some point, tonight, tomorrow, or something, so that when we get to this part of the conversation, people will be like, okay, I'm gonna go find that link.
Yeah, bet. Yeah,
yeah. Nate, can you talk to us a little bit about what your experience has been with unique venues or stages here in the Quad Cities or elsewhere?
Well, I was. Let me stick with locally. There was there used to be a lot of venues. There was, if you stop to consider that across the street from the King Center, that whole block used to be the economic and cultural vitality of that community, and so across the street was the Clover Club, which was a place that had live entertainment 6 days a week.
What was the name of it?
The Clover Club.
The Clover Club.
Clover Club. But around where the drum and bugle corps was, that used to be the Vagabond, the Matador, the Ashanti. I mean, it was those three things. But there was, and if you went down the street from Second Baptist Church, toward 11th Street, there was a place called the Morocco. You know, these there were three clubs within walking distance of each other. And people there were just a lot of venues. There's the thing that I'm most disappointed by these days is there are no venues where these kinds of things go on.
What
You could
happened? What happened though? Like what happened to all the venues?
yeah, they went out of business. Actually, what really happened was urban renewal. Urban renewal came through and just kind of took a lot of that out. That kind of took a lot of the that kind of took the wind out of a lot of people. Uh, and they never could get back to that level of 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 uh, having live entertainment, uh, 5 days a week. That's it just never happened. In Rock Island there's the Elks Club, which is interesting because it was kind of neat because you could go in there and there would be three generations of people dancing with each other. I mean, like your grandmother and your mother I mean, just that's kind of cool. That's kind of indicative of what our communities are like.
Nate,
We always we always think of ourselves as community development people because we understand that community development is more than bricks and mortar, but it's to dealing with the physical and the spiritual needs of the community.
well,
So
it's relationship, right? Like it's more than just yeah.
right.
You
So
said urban renewal. I want to make sure we circle back to that because first of all, we've got a comment that came in. If we could have that posted on the screen, we had a little comment that came in. So, but there are some folks who maybe don't know as much about urban renewal. Can you share a little bit about, what you're meaning when you say that in reference to that district in Rock Island?
okay, well, I can tell you that urban renewal was a way that uh, that 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 black communities were kind of decertified or or taken out of commission all over the country, and there are several books about the deleterious effects of urban renewal. There's a person that in our newspaper there's a woman named Aldine Davis, and her daughter used to write for us, and 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 her granddaughter has a display at the African American Museum in Cedar Rapids, where she's recreated Center Street in Des Moines, and what they did was they built I-35 through that neighborhood, and so all of those businesses, went out of business, and so that's what happened. That's what happened with Rock Island. All of that economic and cultural vitality that was there on Ninth Street, which is Martin Luther King Drive, but all of that was taken out. And if you remember correctly, that property was vacant for 20 years. Just it just so all of what used to be, just the hot spot, was suddenly turned into a place with overgrown grass. There I could,
So
you know,
I don't know if you recall. So do you know my grandmother, Dorothy Davis?
yes,
Yeah, and I think her and Big Man had a club down in that area.
right, absolutely.
What,
Yes.
the Dipper? Was that what it was called?
Yeah, yeah. And Nathan James used to be one of your big customers. Uh, uh, Alfred Davis.
Uh-huh.
That was
That's all
right,
being. Yep, yep.
right. So
So
yeah,
so I
absolutely.
hear when you're describing that, even not just from a music perspective, just this kind of vibrancy, this community, this nightlife, even
Right,
that it was all walks of life, right? That were there. And when you describe that
absolutely.
generational type of thing, my mom tells stories of them being with my grandmother at the club, right? But it was a
Right,
community. It was like a nightlife type of scene, and she was there with my grandmother. My mother and my father were there, and I was behind the bar in the box sleep
right,
because that was the babysitter, right?
right,
So it really was
right,
multi-generational.
right.
Um, Ashley's comments talking about she's convinced she was born in the wrong era, and it's kind of like um, there's something to be said about how music brings us together. And I think we have a responsibility, meaning the generation now, right? That is probably what my mom's age would have been when I was in the box in the club, um, to bring that sense of community back, right? So even when things are dismantled, it's our responsibility to reimagine and find that sense of community, right? And so I think that is one thing where it's like we can long for what was, or we can make something happen now. And part of my frustration when I look at, some of the opportunities, part of why some of these venues don't want to bring certain artists in or don't want to bring certain genres in is because sometimes the crowd that follows, not all of it, but like there can be one person who, or two people who mess it up for everybody. So it's something to think, like that sense of community comes not just from us sharing the same space together. It comes with respect and dignity and watching out for one another too. And so we've lost a little bit of that. Ashley, I think you had something you wanted to say.
I have
Yeah.
a question.
Mhm.
So for a little while now, I've had a desire. This question is for you, Nate. Mr. Lawrence. Let me not be disrespectful. Uh, I'm not about to get popped by nobody. Um, I, for a long time, have wanted, Lord Jesus, to start a coffee shop, but for it to
Mhm.
be a venue for music to happen in the community, a community staple. I'm saying all that to ask you, what do you think it would take for us to establish something like that now?
I think that we live in prime times. Because we just come out of. I think we're coming out of this pandemic, and there's and in that rediscovery is room for a lot of growth. You know, uh, the let me tell you, I was talking to I was I was I was a fly on the wall listening to listening to Bill Bell and Mally Williams talk one time, and Mally Williams, there's a guy in Chicago named uh, Major Walter Diet, who was head of the music department in DuSable High School, and DuSable High School was a feeding ground for all the big bands that traveled around the country. And so when Captain Walter Diet died, they wanted Mally Williams to come and take his place in at DuSable. And I'm sitting here, and Bill is, and it's their conversation, and finally I said, why didn't you take it? You know, and he said to me, and he said to both of us, he said the people that I owe live right here. I don't owe those people. I owe these people. And so he just made me understand that it was our responsibility, like you were saying, it's our responsibility to stay and make it better, And and that, and I say that as being part of what the vision that Ashley is talking about. Just you gotta just stay and make it better. Just and there's room for it, and there's actually uh, there's actually help in establishing something like that for you. You know, the there are a lot of places, particularly with. I agree with everybody here. I'm a fan of your. I used to turn on Facebook, and there you'd be singing driving down the street. And I and I would get the same chill that everyone else got. I mean, and like LaDrina was talking about, it's people of character. I don't think anybody questions your character. I mean, it's and you're the model. Yes, we need to help you do that, so other people can see that they can do it also. So that's it. And let's talk about it. Let's talk about this after this is over.
Yeah. And I think, Ashley, part of it is taking that step and actually putting it out there that that's what you want, right? Being willing to be vulnerable enough to share your vision with other people. And you will find that if you are following your assignment, as you said, in a spiritual context, doors will open for you. There's so much support right now in our community, particularly around, wanting to uplift people of color, right? And give them the tools and resources to be successful. And so it may not be as heavy lift as you think. I know for sure you would have my support and whatever resources that I had available to me through my network. One thing I do want to point out is there was another comment about the space where Cool Beans was. And I think that, that's awesome. But I also hear what Nate is saying around where, what the community was like when those resources were in the community, right? And so when you deprive a community of arts and culture, when you deprive a community of grocery stores, when you deprive and when we talk about planning, like, city planning and how the community is built, it's with intention, right? So there are people who are deciding where the resources are going to be. And so, I would just invite you to consider what would that look like in the district that Nate is referring to, or in a neighborhood where they don't have access to these things. Because what can happen if you go to the typical location is you're going to get the same crowd that was already going to Cool Beans, right? And then the people who needed the next Ashley Dean, the next TC Boyd, they don't get it because they're not going up the hill. For a number of reasons, because either they don't see that as their space, because they don't see that as they're not connected to it. They don't have transportation, any number of things. So I think it's a beautiful concept. I'm glad you chose to share it with us. And I hope to be around to see, to watch you execute and support and uplift you. So this has been good. I think we are touching on a whole bunch of things that we didn't maybe plan on touching on, but I want to make sure that we do touch on some things for those folks who are listening in and want to learn more about where some opportunities are, right? So I've had an opportunity to work with a number of arts organizations that are trying to figure out how to connect with the Black community. So whether it's museums or other music venues, this concern that there's a lack of connection, not just in location and space, but in some ways they've not made themselves accessible or inclusive of the Black community, whether intentionally or unintentionally, right? And in some instances, I'll even use like the Children's Museum. Not that they've specifically been an organization that I'm working with, but they recognize that, like, they see who their patrons are. And there's a reason for that. So there are organizations that are recognizing, like, what are we not doing right, or what do we need to do more of? Or, to make that shift, because they do really want everybody in the community to be able to enjoy the benefits of arts and culture. Where I'm headed with this is the same thing applies to, the music industry. There's a disconnect in this community in some regards to the Black patronage, right? Having Black patrons come into their venues. So can you talk to me a little bit about what you think needs to happen so that people aren't just coming into for a show because they saw the artist that they want, but they really feel connected to the space? And TC, maybe I'll start with you, because you talked about all these different types of spaces where you've performed.
Yeah, and so you were asking kind of what can happen, like what should be the...
Yeah, like what needs to happen for the Black community to feel connected to some of these current venues that maybe they don't feel like are spaces for them? What do the venues need to do differently, or what do Black folks need to do differently, in terms of identifying whether or not that's a space we can or should be in?
Oh, I got you. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, man, I think the biggest thing is communication, man, like across the board, because I think, a lot of venues that, if they feel they can have, like, African-American, whether it be like the crowd or the music, whatever it might be, they have to address why they feel that way, whatever preconceived notions, whatever stereotypes, whatever things they're dealing with, that they're thinking for their business where it wouldn't be good. In reality, it most likely be good, obviously, because you're getting more business, you're getting new business in. So, and then also for maybe the African American community, just kind of giving certain things a chance sometimes, maybe, because I know the feeling of like, man, I don't know, I don't know if they want us there really like that, because, it ain't really, if it wasn't the case, we're like, well, we ain't, I ain't about to go do that, but, at the same time, man, might be surprised if you go certain spots, maybe it might be different than we think, so, I mean, I feel like, but I think open dialogue is the biggest thing, I guess I'd say, because with all of it, man, we like, if we, if a lot of the Black community goes to a certain venue or establishment or whatever, and we try, people are trying, and then if the venue and establishment is just like on some other stuff, then okay, they literally just want to be on some other stuff. Like, so it's like, now we know, you know what I'm saying? Like, now we know. And so I guess that would just be my thing, man. It's kind of that dialogue and like trying things, man, because I guess that's just something that I do personally. I like to try things. And once I see, like, if this is the way that a certain establishment wants to be, or type of people, or, not type of people, but like group of people more so, like, if they want to act a certain way.
Maybe like who they cater to. They're showing this is the audience that they cater to.
Yeah. More who they cater to, like where they don't want to patronize anyone else besides this type of specific audience. Then it's like, okay, well, it is what it is at that point, So, yeah, but I guess that's just my thing, man. I just think that dialogue and like, taking a chance on both sides of the spectrum, though. Like if a business takes the opportunity and take a chance, and then like if individuals or groups of people, take a chance, and then, you might be surprised at what you might get. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Nate.
I think there's a notion out there that we haven't contributed to the success of the building of the Quad Cities, and often when I'm talking to people, and particularly when I'm doing grants or things of that nature, it's just kind of clear to me that we're being perceived as being takers and not contributors. And it makes the road for us a little more difficult. Yes, I'm, and we're saying the same thing. We need to understand each other. Different, and it's I keep going back to what the Panthers said back in the day, and when but and their slogan was always, "This is not a race war, this is a class war," and so I just kind of see that in in uh, in how people, you know, have a tendency to forget the fact that that it's experience that shapes you, and so it's not just us, and we're not trying to build this community just for us. We're trying to build it for our children and our children's children. We're trying to establish some good habits for us as a culture, and for us to thrive as a culture. So I just, that's in every great society, the arts have always been subsidized. You don't see people mincing over whether or not they're gonna support the library. But this is just as important. The fact the fact that we should be able to build on the legacies that our grandparents and forefathers have have left their blood, sweat, and tears, building this quad city.
So I think one of the things that, oh, I think we got a little feedback there that sticks out the most to me is like this notion of we're trying to build a sense of community, not for just the people who are here, but the people who are who will come behind us, right? And it's
Yeah,
not just, yeah, go ahead.
it's, listen, if see, like if like they have no idea who we are. So if they don't understand that, and understand that we're talented and gifted, and just like any other culture, but they don't know what our gifts are, and if they keep judging us by by the negativities, then we'll never then we'll never be able to come together. Like, it's just as important that our youngsters learn, our history, and it's just as important that their youngsters learn our history.
Right.
Just like we know their history. It's their youngsters should learn our history also.
So there needs to be some reciprocity, right? And a
Yes.
desire to learn from one another. And that means experiencing different types of music and experiencing different types of culture through music. But more specifically, one of the things that, that I think really needs to be said is the standard of what talent is, the standard of what art is, should not be defined by one class or one group or one culture. If there's any space where it can be broadly defined, arts are interpretive, right? And so it should be more open to and accessible to more people in terms of there not being one set standard of what talent is, or what quality is. So we're rounding things out here. So we're rounding the corner on our hour. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I have one more thing that I'm going to ask of you all, and I'm also going to ask it of anyone who's listening, whether they're listening now while it's live or listening later. Are there any what are those best kept secrets in terms of venues, places, stages, atmospheres that people in the community need to know about as it relates to music? Ashley, I'm gonna start with you, and you tell me what's that one place that you've been to that's like maybe people know about it, but like they really need to know about it.
I'm not even playing around right now.
Are you gonna say church? Your church?
No, I wasn't. I was gonna say polyrhythms.
Okay.
Actually, I was.
Okay.
I'm a live music girl, and I love jazz too. Absolutely
Mhm.
love jazz. But it's not even just that aspect. Like, they have the educational portion too. Another stage that I love is this is yeah, we're just gonna go there. Is um locally we have Love Girls Magazine,
Hmm.
the Love Awards, the things that they are pulling in artists from the community, children, everybody. But that's a stage that's really precious to me too because it's a stage with a purpose. So yeah, I would say those.
Okay, those are your two. TC, how about for you?
One stage maybe I would say maybe the spot. It's like in Rock Island. And it's like she's gonna say that. The spot's kind of dope because it's just a different setup. I like the setup. It's like different than like other stages. It's like you're on a level ground and then everyone's up kind of. So and it's not like super huge, but it can hold a nice amount of people in there.
It's so dope.
Yeah, it is.
Where's it at, Rock Island?
It's like right
On the
by
outskirts of the district.
1611 Second Avenue, I think.
You better come on with this address.
Hey. Yeah, he got it. Yeah.
That's that old school memory, you know.
Right? I'm like, man,
That's
using GPS.
You have to know phone numbers, right? You have to know everybody's phone number by heart. That's why
It's interesting. You know, the interesting thing is that we I was actually on the committee when the River Music Experience was being thought of, was a vision, and I've always kind of had I've always had the groove, although I haven't liked the way we've been treated all the time, but I've always had the groove because what I wanted to build was a cotton club. I mean, what I wanted I wanted that kind of vibe and that kind of feel for what we did. Because I am old school and I did come from a time when people when people dressed up to go to the ball game, much less go to the club. I mean, I miss that. I mean, and I think that that the habit of doing things like that is it's just it's a standard. It sets a standard that your kids see and they emulate it. The other thing is that it's interesting that you should mention this. We used to do a workshop in front of our concert. So we had a workshop for kids, and it's free for kids, and then we'd have a concert. But now, since the pandemic, what we've done is we've moved the workshop after the concert. So we have a workshop jam session at the spot. Sunday night. So it's kind of and it's really kind of funky, and it's really cool. I really like the space, and it used to be a Bruin view. It used to show movies, and you could have dinner and drink a beer or something like that. It's kind of and it kind of tells me, and hearing you say that, kind of makes me smile because I know that I'm on the right track, and it's not intimidating like like the Redstone Room is, and listen, the Redstone Room was built as a listening room. I mean, it's really slick. It's slicker than snot. I mean, it's like if you
I'm gonna have to use that.
I mean, but it's I mean, so for for the next generation. See, like we both know that we all know that uh, music is never going to be what it used to be. We're fighting. I'm a live guy. I like live. Like actually, I really love live, and because because I like to see, I like I like to grunt at the right
You can
times.
feel it.
So so at any rate, it's really a good venue, but it's but you know if it would benefit if it were more diversified. Period.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing about what you're saying though, especially as it relates to the spot, is like you've got multi-generations that are using that space, right? And that's the power of music. It can be multi-generational, it can be multi-ethnic, multiracial, like all of that. And so I'm gonna have to check it out. And somebody in the comments, or Moselle actually in the comments, put the spot as one of the two. So we might be on to something here. Well, I just want to thank you again for it took everything in me to not like give TC a beat. I was gonna have you just I didn't want to do that to you. And Ashley, I will call Ashley in June and say, I want you to sing happy birthday to me. Y'all, my birthday's in December. So I will call her and ask her to sing anything. So she already knows I will do it. But I tried to bring my best foot forward and not put anybody on the spot. But I would invite you to, like I said, go ahead and hopefully you'll put a cover or put one of your, performances in a link for other people to check out, because we do have some people been in the comments. And so I appreciate you. I appreciate your knowledge, your expertise, your style, your swag, your flow, all of that. This has been a delightful conversation. And to those folks who are listening, thank you for coming along in this journey with us. I hope you are learning. We're trying to bring you fresh perspectives, and I hope you're getting what you need from these conversations. Until we see you next month, I just want to say ta-ta for now, but hopefully you'll come back and check us out. All right, take care now.
Thank you for joining us this evening for Hidden Conversations. The Hidden Conversations project is coordinated by Dr. LaDrina Wilson, Tracy Singleton, Dr. Lauren Hammond Ford, Ryan Sadler, and me, Jared Johnson. We would also like to thank everyone on the Intelligent Conversations Planning Committee and on WVIK's Community Advisory Board for their support and guidance. Support for tonight's conversation comes from a Healing Illinois grant from the Chicago Community Trust, as well as a United for Equity grant from United Way Quad Cities. And mark your calendars for March 10th, 2022, when Michelle Norris, longtime host of NPR's All Things Considered, Washington Post contributor, and author of The Grace of Silence, will keynote our live Intelligent Conversation event, made possible by the Joyce and Tony Singh Family Foundation.